Welcome everybody to the final week of the EMI for Academics MOOC. I am still Rob.
And I'm still Mary.
Yes, and we're greeting you from a sunny Southampton for a change. It's It's a lovely day, which is why we are shiny.
Yeah, we're shiny and sweaty.
And we're in a good mood. Yes.
We're in a very good mood. It's about 26 degrees out there. Can you imagine?
I'm sure most of the people here can imagine much hotter temperatures, but it's
for
special for us.
For us, this is absolutely astronomically high.
Yes.
And it's very humid as well. So, it's hard going when you're hot and sticky and sweaty.
Indeed. So we'd like to start off actually with a fresh anecdote that really brings out some of the themes of the course as a whole, but especially this week, which is Mary has been a high-profile presenter at an international conference today and has a story to tell.
Okay then. Not such a high profile and only a little bit international actually, and just a one-day conference in Southampton, but I was talking about you. Can you imagine? I gave a presentation on some of our findings and some of our thoughts, some of our challenges and some of our aims for the future with this MOOC. And as I was telling Rob about it before we started recording, we noticed how, in fact, the things that I was talking about replicate so many aspects of delivering a lecture, presenting in any circumstances. All of the things that we've been talking about, how they come together in a real life situation. For example, I had far too many slides, so I was rushing to get through them and gabbling. Whereas if I'd really thought about it carefully, rather than thinking about how much I wanted to say, but thinking about my audience, what they could realistically take in the time that was allotted to me, it would have been a much better talk in the sense that they would have come away with a few clearer messages rather than the gabble that I gave. I had not exactly difficulties, but I had a person in the room who thinks that she knows more about MOOCs than I do. Not she probably does. But I had to think very carefully about how I would deal with that person in the question session at the end, because that person had an agenda. And wanted to show her knowledge of the situation. So I felt that however experienced you are at teaching, lecturing, giving presentations at conferences and so on, it's never perfect, and you have good days and you have bad days, and you just try and remember to do it better the next time. It was okay.
I'm sure it was very good.
Oh, it was very good, yeah. It was okay, but I know I could have done it better. So it made me think of you.
And the other thing that's very relevant to this is that you never expect it at home. You think, I'm going to lecture at my own university.
Yes.
People will be supportive, people will listen, people will get engaged. Much like when you're lecturing to your students, you don't always expect them to not understand or them to engage in a slightly criticising way. So you make the assumption everybody is laughing along, everybody is on your side, and it's quite a shock sometimes when you go in and you realise, I should have prepared for this, or I didn't expect this to happen. So But
not knowing about the audience, it's so important. I think we can come to this later on actually in a few points that we want to make about the future. But not knowing the audience is really hard, even when you've just got a very short presentation to make, and everybody has come together with a specific purpose, because they're interested in the same thing. It's tough. So back over to you,
Yes,
Rob, and your
well,
thoughts
over
for the
to-
week.
Over to the people.
The people.
Our people.
Yes.
So yeah, so some very interesting points. I think the most relevant one to what we're describing there is lots of people talked about speaking, and there was a lot of agreement. There hasn't been 100% agreement on, what type, if you can call it type, what type of English you should use in the classroom, what you should aspire towards in terms of the English you used. But there was unanimous agreement, I think, on the idea that if you're focusing on the forms of your language and if you're trying really hard not to make mistakes, your overall performance falls and you lose your confidence, you lose, like now, I'm trying to finish my sentence and don't know which word to pull out of the air. And it's if I become really anxious about that, then obviously my performance will fall. I've been used to listening to myself for long enough now that I don't even pay attention to it. But yeah, I'm focusing on how I'm talking, what I'm saying, how to navigate the area. Somehow, I might be failing dismally. But again, if I'm focusing on the words I'm saying and thinking, I hope the next word I use is the right word. I hope the next use of tense is the correct tense. Then of course I'm going to be an awful speaker. So that was it's good to see that unanimously agreed.
And can I just add that we're talking, because I resonate to that, we're talking in our mother tongue and you are delivering in another language. So it's just a common phenomenon, isn't it?
Yes.
That we perhaps lose our thread or we can't pull out of the air the word that we need at that moment.
And it relates to identity. We've talked about identity quite a lot, but if I were doing this, if my level of Mandarin or Japanese was much higher and I could teach in those, I think if I were teaching to a Japanese audience, I'd feel that they judge me much more negatively as a non-competent speaker. When I speak in my mother tongue, nobody's going to say, oh, you can't speak English, because of course I can. So it's that there's an identity that comes with being a second language speaker, which you feel judged as to how well you know the language. But actually the principles are the same for your first language. You don't, every sentence isn't perfect. Like that one again. I've got some good examples today.
You've got some very good examples.
Yes, it's the heat. Okay.
We're not used to it.
No. And that links to another point that people talked about the different identities and goals of being an educator. So Jamie talked about being a facilitator, being a motivator, not being an example of language. In week 1, lots of people talked about being an example, like a model of language. Now we're looking at what kind of character you show. So you have to show your students it's okay to be creative. It's okay to be communicative, even if you make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, maybe, depending on the context, but maybe you shouldn't care about that. And then you're giving them a role model that says, don't worry about that yourself, because I don't worry about it and I'm employed to teach you. So I think there's a lot of talk about, what kind of character you should have rather than what kind of superficial behaviours you have that people should look up to. So I thought that was lovely. Moving on, other points I thought that were interesting. You can come in when you would like, Mary. I'll keep talking until you hit me and stop me.
I'll just fall asleep.
Yeah. Don't you fall asleep. Press pause first. So the idioms I thought is very interesting. So a general agreement that idiomatic language doesn't help communication. But with the flip side, that not all idiomatic language is the same. Flip side, that was idiomatic.
We can't avoid it, can we?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're right. No, that was cooperative interruption. Wonderful.
You've always got a long word for it.
Thank you. But absolutely. It becomes part of the environment. And also students will bring idioms from their first languages into the classroom, which create a richer environment. And I think there's a distinction between idioms that you can't understand the meaning of and idioms that you can understand and that make the meaning richer. But bear in mind that the way we learn English as a second language and the way certain examinations assess that, they often encourage the use of idioms that are not transparent. You know, like raining cats and dogs and things like that.
Nobody uses.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then you could probably guess, couldn't you? Raining gives a clue.
Well, it does, yes. But idioms rarely translate into other languages. And you can have great fun if, you know, you're with friends who's, you know, between you speak different languages. I've done this with friends who speak, who are French speakers, and I know how to speak French, they know how to speak English. And we translate word for word idioms, and it's very, very funny because you're just saying something completely idiotic when you translate. So I think the kind of idioms that do work are more metaphors, conceptual metaphors, than true idioms. And only a few idioms will translate. But let's not get too sidetracked into that. But do be careful with idiomatic language. It's generational, it's regional, it's to do with people's upbringing, education, all sorts of different factors. So to actually place an idiom correctly with the right audience is very hard.
Yes, it might be peak. That's one I learnt this year from my undergraduate students.
Really?
Peak, as in the peak of a mountain, apparently means something going badly. I'm going to sound really old to young people watching this.
Well, I'm going to sound even older then, because I'd never heard it before. So
okay, yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful illustration, how, you know, one generation has its jargon, language, set of idioms and so on that are not accessible to a different generation. And if that different generation uses the idiom, they can sound strange, they can sound a bit patronising sometimes or condescending. The impression that you give as an older person using the language of younger people sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah. And like in my case, sometimes you don't realise you're an older person, and it's only in moments like that that you realise, oh, I'm not one of you anymore.
Are you talking specific when you say you? Are you meaning me?
Me.
Right. Okay.
That was my.
Or people in general. You. One.
I can't remember. I think I was talking about myself.
Okay.
Oh, I think one. Yes.
One.
Sorry.
Right. Yes. One.
Sorry, I wasn't formal enough for Mary. I apologise.
Sorry.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
Speaking
yes.
of this, rude. Being rude. Another interesting discussion that came up.
Yeah.
And again, it's wonderful having a MOOC because we have people from around the world, and we've heard so many different stories over the years of exactly opposite ideas of people for whom it's incredibly rude to be direct.
Yes.
It's rude to interrupt. And other people who you think it's rude, so I'm talking and talking and talking, and I think, oh, Mary isn't contributing. And so for me, it's polite if you interrupt me and then you also join the conversation. So it's very interesting that, yeah, the exact opposite behaviours, making eye contact, avoiding eye contact. Oh. How
Sorry,
rude.
I couldn't
How
resist.
rude Mary is.
I know,
Okay, yeah.
I'm terribly rude.
But yeah,
Right, okay.
so
Yes.
lots of this. I think this time we've had some discussion of being direct and being indirect.
Yeah.
And that surprised me actually. That in Brazil, there seems to be a preference for being indirect.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
And we have a colleague called Carla.
Oh, yes.
And yes, so that surprised me. But
Yes.
I don't want to say anything about Carla's personality.
No, because obviously there is that aspect as well. We shouldn't generalise because within the population you've got people with their different personalities.
Yes.
You know, wonderful conversation to have with your students about, you know, the way that you address them, the directness and so on. Fabulous conversation to be had there.
Yep, absolutely. And can we move to quotes of the week?
Oh, quotes of the week, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Eduardo. I think I think secretly his target was to get the badge this week. So
I think so.
Going to read 3 quotes of his. So the world is as diverse as its inhabitants. I thought that was a good way of. He was explaining essentially how we're constantly engaged. We're talking about language and change and things like that. Much what you were saying about generations, first language backgrounds, local areas, gender. All of those. So many variables which send people off in different directions, and so absolutely there's a lot of diversity. Wonderful way of putting that. There's a stereotype is a lie based on some facts that are prearranged to our convenience.
Ooh.
I thought I liked that. Essentially the idea that we tell ourselves a truth because it links to our idea of who we are and our idea of what the world looks like and should look like. That was the point he was making here. I thought that was wonderful. I even pinned it. I pinned it to the top. So
well done.
We're going to go through from week 1 to week 4, by the way, and we will pin the interesting conversations. So if you want the highlights of what you've missed in the meantime, then please do go back and have a look at the steps that interested you to see what people have been saying, because obviously you don't get notified every time somebody posts something. And finally, he's got stiff rules are a trademark of schools, not education.
Right.
And I think that's a very interesting thing. I think sometimes we carry ideas with us about the rules of language, the rules of behaviour that are embedded from school.
Oh, yes.
And even in education, in higher education, sometimes people have a rigid school-like mentality. We're just talking about this today, actually. We were doing professional development sessions for staff over the summer. And I noticed some behaviour of some of the trainers, it really reminds me of primary school. And I was just saying, it feels like even the shh
really?
to a lecture theatre of professional educators.
People.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And it's just the way they tell them how to do things. It's very rigid and I didn't feel comfortable. It's certainly not my style. It might work. Again, it's a difference.
Yes.
But again, there's a clear lack of understanding that I understand that this person is not treating me like a child. This person is not forcing me into this situation. I don't think that was clear. And again, however you behave, I think it's important to be clear that you're doing it constructively and for a good reason, which my colleague was not doing, I don't think. And I could see the faces of people in the lecture theatre going.
Yeah, I'll ask you who it was after the recording has finished.
We can have a good gossip afterwards.
Yes.
We won't bore you with that. Because
No.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's my highlight. So once again, a big thank you. I know it's difficult to commit to 4 weeks of watching these videos, commenting, entering discussions, but those of you who have, we're really happy that you have, and I think it's been fantastic. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. We will be running the course again in the autumn. I can't give you a precise date for the moment. But over the summer, we hope to just make a few little changes to the MOOC. Nothing radical at all, but just to make things better. Because we have a few questions, and I was actually talking about some of these questions in the presentation that I gave earlier today. What we're really trying to do here is give you confidence. Now, if I were working with somebody face-to-face in a classroom, it would be easier, with the eye contact and just the physicality, the presence, the way you address somebody. It would be easier to say, come on, you can do it, you've got good skills, etc., etc. It's much more difficult to have somebody's confidence increase when they're miles and miles away from you. To be in a distance learning situation in a MOOC such as this, how can we help you to be more confident is my question. we have these weekly updates where we try and reflect back and say that you're doing well and so on. But if you have any ideas about little tasks or ways of measuring our confidence to encourage people who aren't actually engaging with the course. We have people who are lurking, if you understand the word. They're going through the course, but they're not actually commenting. They're not taking part in the discussion. And we want them to make that leap forward. How can we do it? We can say the words, we want you to be more confident, but clearly there's something missing, something lacking that would help the people who are not engaging actually in the discussions. What is it that we could do to encourage those people more? Now we've got people who are commenting every week and frequently, who have given up a lot of time. So you are the people really who can say, well, I am able to do this because. What skills do you have? What belief in yourself do you have? What motivation do you have to really participate and shine in this arena? So in step 4.19, where we say goodbye and we wave at the camera again, could you please just put a little note, perhaps things that we could do, things that we could say that would encourage more people to participate, because we want people to participate. This is the whole point. We want to build people's confidence and build our community. So if you do have ideas, things that in general we can improve, do please write them in that section, and we'll be absolutely delighted to get your feedback. Already, people have said lovely things. I can't thank you enough for the lovely things you've said to Rob and me. It's wonderful. But if you could give us perhaps some more practical ideas for us to consider. What would you like to say?
I'd just add to that and say you emphasise the confidence factor, which is an important one, but I'll just add anything else as well that you think you would like to have engaged with, you would like to be able to do, that you would like to be able to share. Please just let us know.
Yes, absolutely.
Because last week we said this is good practice. We talked for a long time about engaging with people, but we haven't asked you what would you like us to do differently? How could we change it? So we're asking you now. And I'm sure you've got some great ideas because you've had a lot so far. So, and we want to hear from you and share those ideas. And if I can just remind you that we have a Facebook group of the same name, English as a Medium of Instruction for Academics. You're very welcome. If you're a Facebook person, please join the group. If you're not a Facebook person, I apologise, it doesn't suit everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Nice idiom, which I think everybody will understand. There may be opportunities in the future to have a different kind of forum, a different type of use of social media. I don't know, we've yet to discuss this. But I do want you to go away with a feeling of being part of a community. And that would be very gratifying for us to know that you feel a member of the EMI community. Yes, absolutely.
Have we come to a full stop?
I think we have.
We have come to a full stop.
Plunge into the community. That's
Plunge
what we're
into
saying.
The community.
Yes.
Yes.
Finish with an idiom.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is Rob and Mary saying for the last time, goodbye.
For now.
But I don't really like the word goodbye because it sounds very final. So shall we just say see you next time or keep in touch?
Yes.
We're here.
And do get in touch as well.
We're here. We're at Southampton. You can easily get in touch with us. Lots of ways of getting in touch with us. So please do. Just because the course comes to an end, our relationships through this MOOC don't come to an end.
Yeah.
All right?
Absolutely.
So see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.